The scent hit Krell's nostrils like a hammer to the skull, sharp and metallic, cutting through the humid air of the frontier world they called Epsilon Reach. Blood, fresh blood, and something else, something burning, acrid, wrong. He crouched low, his massive frame folding with practiced ease behind a cluster of violet ferns that grew taller than most species stood. His scales, a deep crimson that faded to black along his spine, caught the double sunset filtering through the canopy. Beautiful, really. Deadly. Absolutely. Krell had been tracking a thornback, one of the local herbivores that made excellent eating if you could get past their armored hides and nasty temperament. 3 days in the wilderness, living off his instincts, proving to himself that he was still the apex predator his ancestors had been. That soft colony living had not made him weak, but now the thornback's trail had gone cold, and this new smell, this wrong smell, pulled at something in his gut. He moved forward, silent despite his size. 270 pounds of muscle, claw, and predatory grace. The Vaxarian people had not climbed to the top of their food chain by being loud and stupid. Well, most of them had not. The wreckage appeared through the trees like a wounded animal, and in a way that is exactly what it was. A human shuttle, split open like an overripe fruit, its hull twisted and blackened. The nose had plowed a trench through the soft earth, taking out a dozen trees before coming to rest against a moss-covered boulder the size of a small building. Krell's lips pulled back, exposing rows of serrated teeth. Humans. Of course it was humans. They flew their tin cans through space like they owned the galaxy, zipping between worlds with that annoying confidence that came from being too stupid to understand real danger. He should leave, right now. Human problems were not Vaxarian problems, and getting involved with their kind only led to complications. Paperwork, questions, the kind of attention that made hunting trips impossible for cycles afterward. His feet did not move. The emergency beacon was silent, either damaged or deliberately shut off. That was bad. That meant no rescue signal, no cavalry coming over the hill with their fancy weapons and self-righteous attitudes. That meant whoever had been on this shuttle was on their own. Krell's enhanced hearing picked up something then, a sound so small, so fragile it almost got lost in the ambient noise of the forest. A whimper, high-pitched, young. Oh no. No, no, no. He moved to the wreckage, his claws finding purchase on the twisted metal. The cargo bay had been ripped open, supplies scattered everywhere, medical kits, ration packs, clothing, personal items that told stories of lives interrupted. There, a stuffed animal of some kind, torn and muddy. There, a datapad with a cracked screen still displaying a family photo. And there, wedged between two collapsed seats covered in dust and blood, a human child. Krell froze. The youngling could not have been more than 4 cycles old, maybe 5, tiny, even by human standards. Dark hair matted with blood, skin so pale it looked like it had never seen proper sun. One arm was bent at an angle that made Krell's stomach twist, and there were cuts, scrapes, bruises painting a map of trauma across exposed skin. Big eyes, brown like wet earth, stared up at him, terrified, barely conscious, alone. Where were the adults? Krell scanned the cockpit, or what remained of it. There, 2 bodies, still strapped in, very clearly dead. The impact had not been kind. Parents, probably. The ship's manifest screen flickered nearby, partially readable. Torres family transport, destination New Seattle colony. They had not made it. The child whimpered again, and Krell felt something crack inside his chest, something he did not have a name for. His instinct screamed at him. Leave. Go. Not your problem. Your species does not do this. Vaxarians are solitary hunters. We do not raise our young in family units. We do not form attachments. We survive alone. We thrive alone. We die alone. But this was not a Vaxarian youngling. This was something small, broken, dying slowly in the wreckage of its destroyed world. Krell's clawed hand reached forward, surprising himself with its gentleness. The child flinched when Krell's claw touched her shoulder, a full-body tremor that spoke of pain and terror in equal measure. He pulled back, hissing softly through his teeth, frustrated with himself, with this situation, with the entire cursed universe that had decided to dump this problem in his lap. Weak. That was what his people called the other species. Soft-skinned, short-lived, fragile things that built their civilizations on cooperation because they could not survive alone. Humans especially. They talked about feelings, about family, about love like it was something real instead of a chemical reaction designed to perpetuate their genes. Vaxirians did not need such things. A female laid her eggs, a male fertilized them, and 3 months later fully formed younglings hatched with all the instincts they needed to survive. No coddling, no weakness, no attachment. And yet, Krell opened his field kit, the one he carried for himself in case of emergency. Antiseptic gel, bone knit patches, pain suppressors. He had no idea if any of this would work on human physiology, but doing nothing was not an option his body seemed willing to accept, no matter what his brain screamed. "This will hurt," he growled, his voice a deep rumble that made the child's eyes go even wider. He cleaned the worst of the cuts first, working with a delicacy that would have made his hunting pack howl with laughter. Krell the mighty, Krell the undefeated, playing nursemaid to a human whelp. The shame of it burned in his chest, but his hand stayed steady. The child, to her credit, barely made a sound. Just small gasps when the antiseptic hit open wounds, tears tracking clean lines through the dirt on her face. Tough, for something so small. Tougher than he expected. "And Maya," she whispered suddenly, her voice hoarse. "My name is Maya." Krell's hands paused. Names. Humans always wanted to exchange names to make things personal, to create connection where none should exist. "Krell," he said finally, because ignoring her felt wrong in a way he could not articulate. "Are you going to eat me?" The question caught him so off guard he actually laughed, a barking sound that echoed off the twisted metal. "No, small thing. I am not going to eat you. Your kind tastes terrible, or so I am told." Was that humor? Was he attempting humor with a human child? What was happening to him? Maya's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Mommy said aliens were scary, but you are helping me." "Mommy?" Past tense that the child did not yet understand. Krell's gaze drifted back to the cockpit, to the bodies cooling in their seats. How did you tell a youngling that her world had ended? You did not. Not his job, not his responsibility. He secured the bone-knit patch around her broken arm, watching the smart material conform to the injury. It would hold. Probably. Maybe. He administered a low dose of pain suppressant, hoping he had calculated the dosage correctly for her body mass. Then he heard it, the distant cry of a ravager pack, those six-legged scavengers that could strip a carcass to bones in minutes. They would have smelled the blood, the fuel, the death. They would be coming. And worse, much worse, he caught another scent on the wind. Vaxarian, his own kind, drawn by the crash, by the possibility of salvage, by the opportunity for sport. His people did not show mercy to the weak. It was not in their nature. Krell looked at Maya, at this tiny, broken thing that had somehow become his problem in the span of minutes. The crash site was a beacon, a target. Staying here meant death for her. Slow if the scavengers found her first. Fast if his people did. He should leave, walk away, let nature take its course. His arms reached down and scooped her up with impossible gentleness, cradling her against his chest. She weighed nothing, light as air, fragile as glass. "We are moving," he said, his tone brooking no argument. "You will be silent. You will be still. Understand?" Maya nodded against his scales, her small hand clutching at the leather strap across his chest. Krell moved into the forest, away from the wreckage, away from the approaching danger. He knew a cave system, 2 kilometers north, defensible, hidden, safe. Why was he doing this? What instinct, what broken piece of his psyche had decided this was a good idea? He did not have an answer. He just kept moving. The child's heartbeat a rapid flutter against his chest, proof that something this fragile could still be alive at all. 3 days. 3 days of hiding in a cave that smelled like minerals and old water. 3 days of listening to every sound in the forest. 3 days of questioning every decision that had led to this moment. Krell sat at the cave entrance, his eyes scanning the tree line for threats that never seemed to stop coming. Ravager packs at night, climbing serpents during the day, and always the possibility of his own people finding them. Behind him, Maya hummed quietly. Some human song that made no sense but somehow filled the silence with something less oppressive than his own thoughts. She had cried the first night, sobbing for her parents, for home, for everything she had lost. Krell had sat there useless, unsure, his entire evolutionary history providing exactly zero guidance on how to comfort a grieving youngling of another species. He had settled for staying close. Apparently that had been enough. "Krell." Maya's voice pulled him from his surveillance. "Are you hungry?" He turned to find her holding out half of a ration bar, the emergency kind from the crash site. She had already eaten her half. chocolate smeared at the corner of her mouth. I have my own food, he said, gesturing to the thornback meat he had finally tracked down and killed yesterday. Raw, bloody, perfect. Maya looked at his meal, made a face, then pushed the ration bar closer. But this one is better. It has chocolate. Mommy said sharing is important. Mommy said. She spoke of her mother in past tense now, the reality settling in with the cruel efficiency of a child's understanding. It was done. They were gone. And yet she was offering him chocolate. Krell took the ration bar, his claws dwarfing the small rectangle. It tasted like processed sugar and chemicals. Terrible. He ate it anyway. Thank you. He managed the words foreign on his tongue. Maya beamed like he had given her a planet. The days developed a rhythm, strange and uncomfortable. Maya talked, constantly, endlessly, about everything and nothing. About her parents, Marcus and Elena. About their apartment on the station where they had lived before. About her stuffed bear, Mr. Patches, who had not made it out of the crash. Daddy was going to teach me to fly, she said on the second day, her voice distant. He said I was old enough to start learning the controls. Just the basic ones. Krell listened because stopping her felt wrong. Because maybe talking kept her from falling apart. Mommy made the best pancakes. She would make funny faces with the syrup. Sometimes a smiley face, sometimes a star. She said breakfast should always start with a smile. Pancakes, syrup, concepts Krell had no reference for, but he could hear the love in Maya's voice, could sense the connection that had existed between this child and her parents. His people did not have this. Vaxarian younglings hatched, knowing their parents by scent alone, then departed to find their own territories. No stories, no shared meals, no pancakes with syrup faces, no love. Was this what made humans weak? This attachment that left them vulnerable, broken when it was severed? Or was it something else entirely? On the third day, Krell taught Maya to identify safe plants, the ones that would not poison her if she got desperate. He showed her how to find water by listening for the sound of streams, how to read the sun's position to understand direction. Why are you teaching me this? Maya asked, her small fingers touching a blue moss that indicated clean water nearby. Because knowledge keeps you alive, Krell said simply. Is that why you saved me? To teach me things. The question hit harder than any predator's claws. Why had he saved her? 3 days later, he still did not have an answer that made sense. I do not know, he admitted, the honesty surprising him. Maya considered this with the seriousness only children could manage. Then she reached out and patted his scaled arm with her tiny hand. It is okay. Mommy said sometimes we do good things without knowing why. She called it kindness. Kindness. A human word. A human concept. Weakness disguised as virtue. But as Maya settled against his side, trusting him completely despite his claws, despite his teeth, despite everything his species represented, Krell felt that crack in his chest widen. She should fear him. Any rational creature would. He was a predator, designed by evolution to hunt, to kill, to survive alone. Instead, she shared her chocolate. She told him stories. She patted his arm like he was something safe. What kind of species raised younglings to trust like this? To give affection so freely? To believe in kindness even when the universe had taken everything? And why did it make his chest ache in a way no wound ever had? Krell. Maya's voice was sleepy now, heavy with exhaustion. Yes, small thing. Will someone come find us? He wanted to lie, to promise rescue, to give her hope. I do not know, he said instead. But until they do, I will keep you safe. Maya smiled against his scales. I know. You are my friend. Friend. Another human word. Another concept his people did not have. But as the third night fell and Maya's breathing evened into sleep, Krell found himself accepting the title, friend. Maybe humans were not weak after all. Maybe they were something far more dangerous. Something worth protecting. The fourth morning arrived with a smell that turned Krell's blood to ice. Pack scent. Vaxarian. Close. He was on his feet before conscious thought caught up. Every muscle coiled tight. Every sense screaming danger. Maya stirred behind him, rubbing sleep from her eyes, and he held up one clawed hand for silence. She froze. 3 days together had taught her that when Krell went still like this, when his scales darkened to that deep threatening crimson, something bad was coming. They emerged from the tree line like shadows given form. 5 of them. His hunting pack. The ones he had left behind to prove he could still survive alone, still hunt without the support of others. And at the front, scales gleaming like polished obsidian, stood Drax, Of course. Of course. It was Drax. Well, 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 Drax's voice carried across the clearing, smooth and mocking. The mighty Krell, reduced to hiding in caves like prey. How the legends fade. The others fanned out, a practiced formation designed to cut off escape routes. Krell recognized them all. Vex, the youngest, eager and stupid. She-Ra, cold and calculating. Rax and Mord, twins who fought like a single organism with twice the claws. His pack, his people, his threat. Drax, Krell kept his voice level, calm. This territory is claimed. Move on. Claimed? Drax laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. By what right? You abandoned the pack to prove your strength, Krell. You do not get to claim territory without completing your hunt. Movement behind him. Maya peeking around his leg, her small hand gripping his leather strap. 5 pairs of predatory eyes locked onto her immediately. The air changed. The casual mockery evaporated, replaced by something sharp and hungry. A human, Vex breathed, taking a step forward. A youngling. Krell, you sly hunter, you found a prize worth taking. She is not a prize, Krell's growl vibrated through the ground. Drax's eyes narrowed, his head tilting in that particular way Vaxarians did when confused. Then what is she? Food? You have always been squeamish about eating sentient species, but desperate times and all that. She is under my protection. Silence. The kind of silence that preceded violence. Then Drax laughed again, but this time there was no humor in it. Protection. Krell, have you lost your mind? Since when do we protect other species? Since when do we protect humans of all the worthless, weak, pathetic creatures in the galaxy? Since I decided, Krell said simply. She-Ra circled to the left, her movements liquid and dangerous. The human government is offering substantial rewards for information on their missing colonists. A living youngling would be worth a fortune. Credits. Technology. Territory rights. She is not for sale. Then she is leverage. Drax moved closer, and Krell matched him step for step, keeping himself between the pack and Maya. Human Marines will pay anything to get their young back. We could negotiate terms that benefit the entire pack. No. Drax's scales flushed darker, anger replacing mockery. What has happened to you, Krell? 3 days ago you were one of us. Now you stand here defending a human whelp like she is your own hatchling. Have you been infected with some human disease? Has their weakness corrupted you? Corrupted? Krell felt his own anger rising now, hot and righteous. I saved a dying youngling. I prevented a cruel death. That is not corruption. That is not weakness. That is exactly what it is. Vex spat. We are Vaxarians. We are apex predators. We do not nursemaid other species. We do not protect the weak. We certainly do not throw away profit and glory for sentimentality. Maya's hand tightened on Krell's strap. He could feel her trembling, could smell her fear, but she did not run. She did not cry. She stayed close to him, trusting him to keep his promise. Friend, I will say this once. Krell's voice dropped to something deadly, something that made even Drax pause. The youngling stays with me. You will leave. Now. Rax and Mord exchanged glances, their twin minds clearly calculating odds. She-Ra stopped circling, her posture uncertain. But Drax did what he always did. He pushed.
You would fight your own pack?
Your own people? For a human? He gestured at Maya with disgust. Look at it, Krell. Weak. Fragile. It will die in a cycle, maybe 2 if you are lucky. Its entire species will be dust in a cosmic blink. And you would betray everything you are for that. Yes. The word hung in the air, like a blade. Drax's lips peeled back, exposing every serrated tooth. Then you are no longer pack. You are no longer Vaxarian. You are nothing. If being Vaxarian means abandoning younglings to die alone, then I am happy to be nothing. You are weak, Vex hissed. You are corrupted. She-Ra added. You are a disgrace, the twins said in unison. Krell absorbed each insult like blows, each word designed to shame him, to make him question his choice. Behind him, Maya whispered, Krell, I am scared. I know, small thing. Stay behind me. Drax's claws extended, each one as long as Maya's arm, each one designed to rend and tear. Last chance, Krell. Give us the human. Rejoin the pack. We will forget this moment of weakness. Krell's own claws extended in response, the metallic sound sharp and final. Come and take her. The clearing erupted. Drax launched forward, a blur of scales and fury. Krell met him head-on, their bodies colliding with a sound like thunder. Claws raked across scales, teeth snapped at throats, two apex predators fighting with everything evolution had given them. Vex circled, looking for an opening to grab Maya. Krella's tail whipped out, catching the younger Vaxarian across the chest, sending him sprawling. Shira came from the left, Rax and Mord from the right. 4 against 1. Bad odds. Terrible odds. Krell fought anyway. He fought like his ancestors, like every predator in his bloodline, but he fought for something they never had. He fought for someone else. Blood sprayed. His and theirs. Pain bloomed across his ribs, his shoulder, his leg. Drax was strong, had always been strong, and with the pack supporting him, even Krell's legendary prowess was not enough. He was going to lose. Maya was going to die. And then the sky opened up and hell came down in human form. The sound came first. A high-pitched whine that cut through the chaos of combat like a knife through flesh, growing louder, closer, angrier with each passing second. Drax's head snapped up, his claws still embedded in Krell's shoulder. What is that? Then the first drop pod hit. It slammed into the clearing with enough force to crack the earth, soil and stone exploding outward in a wave of kinetic fury. The pod's sides blew open before it even finished settling, and out stepped a figure in armor that made Vaxarian scales look like decoration. Human, marine, massive. Then another pod hit, and another, and another. 6 in total, forming a perfect perimeter around the clearing in under 10 seconds. Mathematical, precise, terrifying. Krell stumbled back, pulling Maya behind him, his blood leaving dark trails in the dirt. Drax and the pack froze, their prey drive confused, their combat instincts screaming contradictory commands. Fight? Flight? Neither seemed adequate. The Marines moved like they had rehearsed this 1,000 times, which they probably had. Weapons up, angles covered, exits blocked. No wasted movement, no hesitation. Pure professional violence held in check by discipline alone. Contact, one of them said, voice flat and mechanical through helmet speakers. Multiple Vaxarian hostiles. Human juvenile located. She appears mobile. Maya Webb. Another voice. This one carrying authority that made even Drax's dominance displays look juvenile. A figure stepped forward, taller than the others. Armor decorated with rank insignia that meant nothing to Krell but everything to the Marines, who snapped to tighter attention. Commander. His brain supplied. Pack leader. Daddy? Maya's voice was small, disbelieving, broken by hope that hurt to hear. One of the Marines moved differently then, faster, less controlled. He dropped to one knee, and his helmet retracted with a hiss of hydraulics. The face underneath was human, older than Krell expected, with hair going gray at the temples and eyes that held the particular kind of exhaustion that came from days without sleep. But those eyes found Maya and filled with something Krell had seen in her face 100 times over the past 3 days. Love, relief, desperation. Maya, the man Marcus Webb father breathed. Oh, thank God, Maya. She ran, tiny legs pumping, injured arm forgotten, crossing the space between them in heartbeats. Marcus caught her, pulled her against his armored chest, and Krell watched a grown warrior shake with sobs he could not control. I thought we lost you, Marcus whispered into her hair. I thought we lost you too. Elena, the mother, gone. Krell felt the weight of that word like a physical thing. Commander Torres, another Marine reported. Weapons still trained on the Vaxarian pack. Multiple hostiles remain active. One appears injured. Orders. The commander, Torres, moved forward. His helmet was already retracted, revealing a face carved from stone and bad decisions, scarred along one jaw, eyes like frozen earth. He looked at Drax, at Vex, at each member of the hunting pack with the kind of attention a predator gives prey before the killing strike. Stand down, he said quietly. Or do not. Your choice. It was not a threat. It was a promise. Drax, fool that he was, bristled. You dare threaten us? We are Vaxarian hunters. We do not fear soft-skinned humans who hide behind armor and guns. Torres smiled. It was not a nice smile. Noted. Jenkins, scan the area. How long have these hostiles been here? Heat signatures suggest arrival approximately 4 minutes ago, sir. Evidence of recent combat. Blood analysis indicates 1 friendly, 4 hostile. Friendly, Shira hissed. Which one? Torres's eyes found Krell still bleeding, still standing between where the pack had been and where Maya now was. The commander's expression shifted, not softening exactly, but calculating. Martinez, Torres called. How long have we been tracking Maya's beacon? 4 days, 6 hours, Commander. Since the crash site. Distance covered, 237 light-years, sir. 3 jump points. Every ship we could commandeer or requisition. Torres looked back at Drax. We crossed 237 light-years in 4 days. We burned through enough fuel to power a small colony for a year. We pulled ships from active patrol defense stations and civilian routes. Do you know why? Drax said nothing. Because she is ours. Torres's voice dropped to something cold and absolute. Because every human child is ours. Because we will burn the galaxy to ash before we leave one of our own behind. He took a step forward, and despite themselves, despite their pride, despite every instinct that screamed they were apex predators, the Vaxarian pack took a step back. Now, Torres continued, my scans tell me one of you has been protecting her. Feeding her, keeping her alive. That one gets to walk away. The rest of you. His smile grew sharper. Well, attempted kidnapping of a minor is a capital offense in 14 systems. We happen to be in one of them. Drax's scales flushed pale. The Vaxarian equivalent of blood draining from a face. The injured one, Marcus called out, still holding Maya. She says his name is Krell, says he saved her, kept her safe. Torres's eyes found Krell again. That true? Krell, exhausted, bleeding, confused by the sudden shift in power dynamics, simply nodded. And these others, they wanted to take her, sell her, use her as leverage. The temperature in the clearing dropped in degrees. Is that so? Torres said softly, then louder to his marines. Detain them, all of them except the injured one. Contact Vaxarian authorities. Tell them we found 5 of their citizens attempting to traffic a human child. Let them decide what to do with them. The marines moved as one, a coordinated machine of armor and purpose. The hunting pack, the apex predators, the fearsome Vaxarians who had never known defeat, were surrounded, disarmed, and restrained in under 30 seconds. Drax thrashed, screaming about sovereignty and rights and insults. Nobody cared. Vex went quiet, realizing too late that some prey fought back. Torres approached Krell slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal, which Krell supposed he was. You saved her, Torres said. Why? Krell thought about that question, the same one he had asked himself 100 times. He looked at Maya, safe in her father's arms. Alive because he had made a choice that went against everything his people believed. Because leaving her to die alone was wrong, he said finally. Torres studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Yeah, it was. Medic, get this one patched up. He is coming with us. Commander, Krell started. I do not need. That was not a request. Torres cut him off, but his tone was not unkind. You saved one of ours. That makes you one of ours too. At least until we figure out what to do with you. Besides, he glanced at Maya, who was peeking over her father's shoulder at Krell with worried eyes. Pretty sure she would riot if we left you behind. Krell comes, Maya said firmly. He is my friend. Friend. That word again. Marcus looked at his daughter, then at Krell, something complicated passing across his features. Gratitude, suspicion, confusion, but mostly gratitude. Then Krell comes, Marcus agreed. And just like that, Krell's entire world shifted on its axis. The medical bay on the human ship was too bright, too clean, too filled with the antiseptic smell that all advanced species seemed to think meant safety. Krell sat on a reinforced bench, designed for species his size, while a human medic no bigger than Maya worked on closing the gashes Drax had left across his ribs. Hold still, she said, not unkindly. The biogel needs another minute to set. Krell held still. He was good at that now. 3 days with Maya had taught him patience he never knew he possessed. The door hissed open. Marcus Webb entered, no longer in full armor, just the underlayer that made him look smaller, more human, more vulnerable. But his eyes, those eyes held something dangerous, something paternal and violent in equal measure. He dismissed the medic with a nod. She left, understanding that some conversations needed privacy. For a long moment Marcus just stared. Krell stared back, understanding that this was evaluation. Judgment, the weighing of scales that would determine what came next. My daughter, Marcus said finally, his voice rough, was in a crash that killed my wife. She was alone, injured, surrounded by a forest full of things that would have eaten her without a second thought. She was 4 years old. Krell said nothing. What was there to say? And you, Marcus continued, taking a step closer, a Vaxarian hunter, a species known for being solitary predators who view other races as beneath them. You found her. You could have left her. Should have left her. By everything I know about your people. Yes, Krell agreed simply. Why did you not? The question again. Always the question. Krell looked down at his claws, still stained with blood, his and Drax's mixed together, because she was alone, because she was dying, because walking away felt like becoming something I did not want to be. Marcus absorbed this, his jaw working. She told me everything. How you cleaned her wounds, how you carried her to safety, how you taught her to find water, to identify safe plants, how you shared your food even though her human rations were terrible. Despite himself, Krell's lips twitched. They were terrible. She told me you stood between her and your own pack, that you fought 5 of your own people to protect her. I lost, Krell said, looking at his wounds. You held them off until we arrived. That is not losing. That is winning by any measure that matters. The door opened again. This time Torres entered, followed by Maya. She had been cleaned up, her arm properly set in a medical cast covered in colorful drawings that other Marines had apparently added. Dinosaurs, spaceships, a crude drawing of what might have been Krell himself. She saw him and her face lit up like a star going nova. Krell! She ran to him, wrapping her small arms around his leg in a hug that should not have meant anything but somehow meant everything. Krell's massive hand settled on her head, gentle, protective.
Hello, small thing. You are looking better.
The doctor said my arm will be fixed in 2 weeks. She gave me ice cream. Do you know what ice cream is? It is amazing. Marcus watched this interaction, and something in his expression cracked. The suspicion, the protective anger. It did not disappear, but it made room for something else. Understanding. Torres cleared his throat. We have contacted the Vaxarian government. They are not pleased about the attempted trafficking, but they have agreed to take custody of your former pack members. They also, he paused, choosing his words carefully, expressed confusion about your actions, said it was unprecedented, said you would likely be outcast for this. Krell nodded slowly. He had expected as much. Vaxarians did not forgive deviation from the code. He had chosen an outsider over his pack. He had protected weakness instead of exploiting it. He was no longer one of them. Strangely, it did not hurt as much as he thought it would. We owe you a debt, Torres continued. You saved one of our own when you had every reason not to. Command has authorized me to offer you safe passage to any Vaxarian world, or, he paused, asylum if you need it, work permits, citizenship eventually if you want it. Citizenship, Krell tested the word. In human space. You protected a human child, Marcus said quietly, his hand on Maya's shoulder. That makes you family in the ways that matter. My people, we take care of family, pack, connection. Krell looked at Maya, at her bright eyes and easy smile, at the trust she gave so freely. He thought about 3 days in a cave, about shared chocolate and stories about pancakes, about a small hand patting his arm and calling him friend. He thought about Drax's words, about corruption and weakness and disgrace. He thought about Marcus Webb, who had crossed 237 light-years because his daughter needed him. He thought about Torres, who had commandeered ships and burned enough fuel to power a colony because every human child was worth saving. He thought about the Marines who had dropped from orbit with precision and fury because one of their own was in danger. Weak? These humans? No. They were terrifying. Not because of their weapons or their ships or their armor, but because they cared. Violently. Absolutely, without reservation or doubt. They would burn galaxies for their young. They would fight impossible odds. They would extend hands to alien predators who saved their children. They were strong in ways Vaxarians had never understood. I would like, Krell said slowly, to accept your offer. I have no pack to return to, no place among my people. Then you have a place among ours, Torres said firmly. Maya squealed with delight, hugging his leg tighter. You are staying. Krell is staying, Daddy. Marcus smiled, tired and sad and grateful all at once. Yeah, baby. He is staying. Later, as the ship prepared for departure, Krell stood at an observation window watching Epsilon Reach shrink below them. The forest where he had hunted alone. The cave where he had learned what connection meant. The clearing where everything had changed. Maya stood beside him, her small hand in his large claw. Krell? She said softly. Yes, small thing. Thank you for being my friend. Mommy would have liked you. Krell's throat tightened. An unfamiliar sensation. I would have liked to meet her. They stood in comfortable silence. Predator and prey, alien and human, friend and friend, as the ship jumped to faster than light and the stars stretched into lines of light. Krell had saved a human cub and learned that mercy was not weakness, that protection was not corruption, that sometimes the strongest thing a predator could do was choose not to hunt. And as Maya leaned against his side trusting and safe, Krell understood something his people never would. Humans guarded their own with a ferocity that made apex predators look tame. And now, impossibly, miraculously, he was one of their own too. The galaxy would never look the same again.